This is how the hot dog fairy saved the entire Lehigh Valley. And on Tuesdays in July, hot dogs at Potts were only $1.
I gotta find out how the hot dog fairy does this.
Welcome to Potts. What can I get you?
Allentown, Bethlehem, Easton, and sometimes Emmaus. Welcome to the Lehigh Valley with Love podcast.
All right. Welcome to the Lehigh Valley with Love podcast. I've told this story before. My daughter does miss you. She's 2.5. She's almost 3. She went to the bathroom in her diaper, and we try to tell her, explain.
I like that you associate that with me. That's good.
We're like, everybody poops. It's normal. We're pie trained. And so she starts going through people. She's like, oh, mommy poop, daddy poop, Tyler poops? And we're like, yes, he does.
Yes.
So you made her.
I like to inspire in any way.
That was good.
It's good that I could. Your daughter finds inspiration.
I'm glad you're feeling happy now because you're
I
not going to be in a few minutes.
Why?
Because our guest today is Dr. Catherine Ramsland from DeSales University. And she's going to talk to us about ghosts and serial killers and all sorts of stuff that Tyler is terrified.
My heart rate is going up already.
Of ghosts. But we want to say welcome. Thank you for coming on the podcast.
I'm happy to be here. I can't wait to scare you.
Oh, please don't scare you. Be nice. Be kind.
No.
For people who don't know you, like I've met you. I used to do ghost tours at the Moravian Bookshop of all things. And the tour was based on a book that you co-authored or authored?
Yeah, I basically wrote it, and Dana DeVito, who was the Moravian Bookshop supervisor at the time, contributed stories to it, and then between the two of us, we put the whole thing together.
And that's one of 65 books that you've written.
So far.
Wow, that's a lot.
Tyler hasn't read 65 books.
It takes a long time to read books.
Your comic books don't count.
Yeah, no, I haven't read.
Because I don't even know this. Like, what is your background? Where did you grow up in the area?
I did not. I came here in 2001, actually because the DeSales University psychology program was interested in a forensic track, and I had just graduated from or gotten a master's at the John Jay College of Criminal Justice. I was at the time teaching philosophy at Rutgers University, and I decided to change my life completely and come here and manage this forensic track, and I've loved it ever since because I love teaching these courses on serial killers.
You mentioned, what are some of the names of the courses you teach?
One is called Dangerous Minds.
Oh, man.
Which is the psychology of abnormal behavior or, serial killers, essentially mass murders. One is the psychology of death investigation, which is called psychological sleuthing. And the other is an introduction to forensic psychology.
I feel like psychological sleuthing could trick me if I was signing up for courses. This one looks easy. I figure this one out, and then I get there, and I'm just like, I gotta go, I gotta leave, I'm crying in class right now.
So most of the people taking your courses are criminal, you're going to be detectives or things like that.
Well, criminal justice, so it could be a lot of different things, and the psychology students, but also I get theater majors and some from the forensic science tracks because they're interested in the science aspect of death investigation. I work a lot with the Northampton County coroner, so I get, stories from that. Sometimes he comes in and teaches a class. So that's good for the forensic science.
Is that Lysick?
Zach Lysick, yeah.
Because the one in Lehigh County is Scott Grimm.
Not anymore.
He's gone?
Yeah, he retired in February, and there's a new one now.
But his name was Grimm.
You got to be.
I know.
He's like, you know
perfect.
What? There's nothing else. That I got to do something.
Yeah. That's a perfect name for it.
It's very weird. And one of the reasons because I think this stuff is fascinating, and we were talking about it kind of off air. Like I watch, because you've been on. What are some of the shows you've been on? Like I don't want to name them, but 48 Hours and 2020.
Yeah, pretty much all the nighttime ones. I was just on 2020. I've been on Dr. Oz. I've been on several 48 Hours, Forensic Files, a lot of Investigation Discovery or Oxygen shows. Pretty much any networks doing true crime, I've probably done a show or two.
One time, You ever watch ID Discovery? It's
Oh,
it's like all murder shows all day. And
I don't
lost the
love
rem-
murder.
I lost the remote.
It scares me.
I lost the remote to the TV. I'm like, I don't care. This is the only channel I watch. BTK, which is Dennis
Yeah.
Rader, was a serial killer, and you wrote a book, and it's still out, obviously.
Yeah,
buy it.
and it's different from the other books in him because this is more or less by him. It's his autobiography.
How did you? Like, do you just call the prison and you're like, I want to talk to
yeah.
Dennis Rader?
Can I get a
No.
moment with the
No,
how is that
actually,
whole process?
no, actually, how I came aboard is very weird. When he first got arrested, and Dennis Rader killed 10 people in Wichita, starting in 1974 and ended in 1991. And he got away with it for 30 years because he was an ordinary person who had a family. He was president of his church congregation. Everybody thought he was a great
Regular guy in Nazareth.
regular guy. But, then he made a mistake and got caught. And when he got arrested in 2005, there was a woman who wanted to write his book. And so she befriended him. And she wrote letters to him for 5 years to collect information. And then she showed up on Facebook, but the book hadn't come out. I knew who she was. So I said, whatever happened to your BTK book? And she knew who I was because she was using one of my books as her model. And then she said, would you please take it over? I don't want to finish this. I don't really want to.
Why?
Well, that's sort of her story.
Okay.
But then it wasn't
Did it have
just-
anything to do with he was the BTK killer?
Well, she wanted to do that. She wanted to do that. And so, but it wasn't just a matter of me saying, okay, I'll take it over. The victim's family members, surviving family members, had to approve me because
And
other
they get
other
the money
people-
from the book, right?
They get the money from the book, but other people had approached them and they had turned them down. So my idea was to guide his autobiography in a way that would then yield information for criminal justice, psychology, and law enforcement, so that it wouldn't just be him blathering on about himself, but would be something that would be very useful. And so they thought, okay, if there must be a book, we know it's inevitable, then that is the kind of book we would want to have out there.
Yeah.
So was the communication like you're writing letters?
So
or?
then she sort of facilitated me meeting him because he was going to be transferred from her to me, and he had to say okay. So the first thing he did was ask me to solve a code because he wanted to communicate in code. And also,
You had to audition.
I had to audition. I
for the
definitely
BTK
had to
killer.
audition, yes. But I was up for it, and we also started playing chess because he wanted, to see what I would do with that. But the code was interesting because it was very convoluted and weird. I did figure it out, but I thought this is so not going to work for the book. So I created a code for us to use, and he liked it because I created it off of the things I knew he would enjoy. Like for him, the number 3 was very magical. So I used all kinds of 3 things in
So
this.
you're messing with the. This is
So
crazy.
you're basically mental warfare with the BTK killer.
Yeah.
Like, how do you prepare? Like today for work, I will go play a mind game with the BTK killer.
Like, what are you doing today? I don't know. I'm crafting a code.
I'm gonna get
for
some
the
coffee.
BTK
I'm gonna stop at Wawa, and then later I'll talk to the BTK killer.
It is, yes. It's very.
Well, we did talk every week on the phone,
Oh, you talked to him on the
on
phone?
the phone all the time.
Oh my God.
So he wrote long letters in chicken scratch, which is hard. We talked on the phone, and part of our code was not just the code from the letters, but we watched TV shows, and the TV shows provided metaphors for us to talk through. He got me to watch Bates Motel, which I thought was a fabulous
What was
show.
he doing?
what a
Does he have
cosign.
Netflix?
What a cosign.
Wait, do they have Netflix in prison?
No, it's cable. It's not Netflix.
Oh, yeah.
Do they have Netflix in prison, George?
Well, the thing is, I did go to the prison to talk with him, but that was the least productive place because the guards were listening in. So
How
there really
close
wasn't
were you?
much.
Okay.
Was he
Like,
behind a
He's
thing?
behind a thing, and you have to talk on the phone, and you don't get to be that close to him.
Was he made?
But I would not have been afraid had I been.
Really?
Yeah,
It wouldn't have.
he was very respectful, actually, to me.
What if it was like in a park?
I still wouldn't have been afraid.
His gets
I'm
out.
afraid. talking to the person that talked to the BTK killer. I'm afraid right now.
Are there any other high-profile like cases or?
I've communicated with other serial killers, if that's what you mean, but not for that purpose.
Have you connected, like, more so or less with one serial killer than the other?
Are you asking like who's your best friend serial killer?
No, I
Like,
would
who's your
never ask
favorite?
that. But yes, that's kind of. That's,
I actually had already been writing to a serial killer from my hometown who didn't like the fact that I was going to write
you say
Raiders
who it
book. No, I can't. 'Cause
jealous.
he asked me not to.
Well,
But
he's
he was
like,
jealous.
I heard you're making codes
Yeah.
with BTK.
I do not
I'm
like
out.
how you're talking to another killer.
That's right.
Who would have thought a serial killer had a jealous
He's
trait?
like, I don't believe you're talking BTK. I'm the coolest. Oh, that's just like I actually have goosebumps.
Yeah.
Like thinking about some of that.
Yeah.
I had an exchange with Ed Kemper, who's famously of the Mine Hunter.
Isn't he like 20 feet tall too?
He's very tall. He's huge. But he had, that was weird too. I wrote Dean Koontz's biography. And in that, Dean Koontz used him as a model for a psychopathic killer for one of his books. That my biography of him ended up being translated for the blind. And Ed Kemper was the guy doing that work. And he read this description of him that he didn't like in Koontz's book, so he came after me.
And you probably don't know. I know this again just because it's weird because I enjoy this stuff. I've read some books too. But Ed Kemper like killed his mom and like put her on a dartboard.
No. Killed his father and the mom was the last. He killed his grandfather and grandmother when he was 15. Went to prison, learned all kinds of cool stuff. When he got out at 21, he started picking up young women who were hitchhiking in Santa Cruz, cutting their heads off, eating parts of them, and then finally killed his mother. Tore out her larynx because he was tired of her, snarking at him.
Put in the garbage disposal.
Put in the garbage disposal. Came back, and then he killed a friend of hers, and then he went on the run, but then ultimately turned himself in. But he's about 6'9", I believe.
So this was a man that you figured, let me start a correspondence with this guy.
No, he started one of the
remember he
answered.
The serial killer was translating a book that she wrote into Braille.
You know what this makes?
And
This makes it every girl I've tried to pick up at a bar that's ghosted me and never answered me back. I feel way worse now. If this guy could get an answer, a serial killer.
Well,
I just can't get one text back.
No. Here's how he got the answer. He sent
What was his pickup line?
He sent one of his prison groupies, who was a female wrestler, to confront me over this.
He's sending people after. Like that's when it gets to be, because there are people, and
No, but the best thing is she wanted to be a writer, so that she was friends with me.
So are you still friends with her?
No, because
she's crazy.
I then ended up.
Well, they had.
No, but it was just an odd way of meeting him. And then he kept saying the stuff that I said in the book about him was not true. And I said, you said that stuff on tape. Well, I didn't mean it. I said, well, what do you want me to do? How am I supposed to know that?
He's like, what do you want me to do, Ed?
That brings up an interesting point, though. Like, so you meet with these people. How do you, like, credibility has to be somewhat of a thing that you have to sift through, because you're talking to somebody that's crazy.
Of course.
Yeah. So how do you?
They're not crazy.
Well, not crazy, right? Okay.
But you are talking to people who like to play games and manipulate and lie.
And how do you sift?
Well, if you have something on videotape that he said, I'm pretty sure he said that.
Right.
This is not the days of digital where you can manipulate all kinds of stuff. He said it.
What I mean is, what if he, like? So I'm sure they lie, right? And make up other. How do you find out what's true and what they're just?
You don't necessarily find out. It's kind of complicated, but there are layers of what they show you that undercut some of the things they say. But the advantage I had with Rader was I had the police interrogation on tape, also the transcripts, also the correspondence with the other woman,
you did your homework.
also my correspondence, also, so I had many different perspectives on him so that when he might say something to me, I could say, well, you told the police this. Which one is true?
I don't know if you can answer this because I don't know if there's an answer to it, but what's the difference between like Dennis Rader and Tyler? Like what?
Whoa,
What's
come on. Why would?
Well, I mean, like a guy
Can you
who
not answer
doesn't
this?
kill people.
Can I get a lawyer present before
Why?
this
Like,
gets answered? It's getting hot in here, George.
like, does he have a disease? Not you, but like, BT. Like, why does that guy go out and kill 10
I don't know
people?
Tyler well enough to know that.
Well, assume that he's just a regular guy, doesn't kill people.
Well, that's
I'm not
what
a serial
they,
killer, but I am a stand-up
That's what they
comedian.
said about BTK. He seemed like a regular guy. Bundy seemed like a regular guy. Israel Keyes, everybody loved him. So it's not, you can't just have me sit next to someone and assume
That's
he's
what-
not a serial killer.
Yeah, you could be a serial killer.
All right.
I mean, I want to look back on this and say, I knew it.
Extreme crime is very popular. But what is the benefit of teaching these things to actual students?
They're understanding what I call the developmental trajectory of various different cases, and they're learning to not stereotype, to not oversimplify these cases. That we're trying to take, an adult murderer back to his or her childhood, to try to figure out where did things go wrong. And the more we can do that, the more we might be able to develop programs that could intervene on that.
George is a fan of true crime. That doesn't necessarily mean he would be a good detective.
But there's a great amateur network of people who work very hard at trying to match Jane Does and John Does to
Do you ever go
homicide
on
victims.
like Reddit or anything like that? They have like forums.
They're all over the place. There's a great book called Skeleton Crew, which is about all these various networks. And some of them, yes, get in the way. They're well-meaning, but they are amateurs. But there certainly are amateurs who have helped solve cases and identify victims and rejoin the remains with families looking for them. And so, more power to them. And so I would say people who are very involved in true crime could have the makings of somebody who would have that kind of dedication. And you have to approach it with knowledge. So people watching these shows have some knowledge. The only thing I would say about the shows, it tends to support more superficial, formulaic approaches to crime, and that's really not helpful to anybody.
So I want to make sure. Let's lighten the mood a little bit. 'Cause it got a little scary.
Please
there.
do.
So
No, I think that was fun.
well, something else
feel like I
that
just
you
worked
write
out.
about. See, Tyler's getting into it now. You also have written at least one book about Lehigh Valley ghosts.
Yes.
Right.
Well, I wrote a book about Lehigh Valley murders and a book about Bethlehem ghosts, which was covered the Lehigh Valley. So the two of those go together. The ghost tours that go out of the Moravian Bookshop are based on the Bethlehem Ghost
And
book.
I used to give some of those back in the day.
Yeah.
So it's almost like the perfect business model. You write about the murderers and the victims.
Well, it actually
It's
went the other way. I did the ghost book, and then I said, there's a lot of murders in the Lehigh Valley that are worth
God.
writing about.
Well, people, if you don't like, serial killers and murder and all that, totally understandable. But I think there's a lot of
The
people who
ghosts
are
are
into
fun.
ghosts because it's kind of fun.
Well, what's interesting about Bethlehem, though, is because of the Moravian influence, you have unusual ghost stories.
Why is that?
Because they have a different take on life. And so the Moravians used to have this kind of procession between Nazareth and Bethlehem, if you can imagine. It's a pretty long ways to walk, where they'd sing the whole way
You ever do that?
on certain holidays.
Tyler's from Nazareth.
And then when they stopped, you could still hear the voices during those days.
Huh.
So for the record, Tyler is terrified of ghosts. We were talking about your, what do you do when you go to a hotel anywhere?
I am scared of ghosts a lot. And when I go on the road to different hotels, I look up if the hotel is haunted. And if it is...
Why not do that? Like, why just...
Because I just then assume it is haunted.
But then why go to the hotel?
Because I don't control, believe it or not, they pick where I get to stay.
Oh, okay.
and the places Tyler is staying at,
Yeah.
they're definitely haunted.
Sometimes I don't even get a hotel. And then I'm like, my car's not haunted, so I guess that's fine.
The best thing to do when you're in a situation like that is name the ghost. A friend of mine bought this old miners' hotel near Johnstown in Altoona area. He bought it on eBay sight unseen, and then he went to live in it. And he had a number of things happen, and he started freaking out and telling me, what should I do? And I said, put names to them and talk to them. And it actually, whether did anything to them or not, I don't know, but it helped him
Yeah.
feel as if they were people who just wanted some attention.
He bought a hotel on eBay.
Sight unseen for
Yeah.
$10,000.
That's actually how every horror movie starts. So
I mean, what are either your favorite or some really interesting ghost stories for Bethlehem that maybe somebody doesn't know about? Like,
or feel like you were scared and you wanted to avoid them. Either way, however you want to
Well,
word it.
I go looking for them, but that's
Would that
another
be?
story. One of my favorites is the one in Hellertown. It's Der Ausleger. He was a sort of undertaker who ran around the back roads of Hellertown with a horse and undertaker wagon. And he would be always looking for when somebody, this is before people had their wakes and stuff in churches, they had them in the homes. So he would go around looking for funeral feasts and people having wakes in their homes, because what he knew was when they washed down the bodies to prepare it for burial, they'd toss the death water out into the yard. And he liked to go get on his hands and knees and slurp it up.
what?
That's unusual.
You know, I thought Jameson was death water, but I am wrong.
I did not. I have never. That's so. What? Wait. So what does the ghost do? Does he come to your house and just drink your water?
No, he does, and he comes to your funeral dinner and he eats the food.
What a guest, huh? what a.
That's the worst ghost ever. He just comes in and steals your stuff, and you didn't.
I will have.
like it. I
what-
think that's a good story.
That's really unique. I never.
One
Very
glass of
drinks
death
the
water.
death water.
I think I need some living water to just maybe
Well,
feel
I mean,
a little.
Because I mean, obviously, if you go to Europe, they laugh at us because it's like, oh, your oldest things from the 1700s, big deal,
Yeah.
Right.
But the fact that Bethlehem is so old, 1740 whatever, is that why you think there's so many ghosts in that town? I mean, you said
it's
Easton.
not really about
before.
what's older. You can have ghosts in very modern places. It has more to do with the earth that it's on. Like Gettysburg is a great
Right.
place. If that's one of the most haunted places ever, and that has a lot to do with the makeup of the soil. The granite is a good conductor of energy, supposedly.
I stayed overnight at a bed and breakfast once it's called like the Double Apple or something. It's a bed and breakfast on the battlefield. Double day. The only thing I didn't like about that bed and breakfast is that they didn't have a TV. I sleep with the TV on most of the time. I just need some sort of sound. So it's really weird to be in complete silence in a bed and breakfast on the battlefield. Like if you fell out the window, you're on the battlefield.
Do you know how much death water I'd have to drink for you to get me to go on that thing? I'd have to have a bucket of death water. Feeling really.
How can they not? How can there's a bar in Hellertown has got to make, what is it, the Der Auslander?
Yeah.
The
Der
death water.
Auslander.
The death water shot.
the death water shot.
That story, I can't even continue.
I
He
told you, it's a good
slurps up the
story.
death
Yeah,
water.
yeah.
What-
So they finally started taking it to the cemeteries to dump because they didn't like it.
This is
Yeah.
guy
There
running
you
around
are.
drinking.
Because his fridge was full of death water. Oh my God! I won't sleep for a week till the next episode tapes. What's the most haunted city that we have?
In the country
No,
or in the Lehigh
Lehigh
Valley?
Yeah.
It's a toss-up between mainstream Bethlehem and Easton has a lot of stories, and they're in the book as well. I mean, they were amazing.
My favorite one is Moravian. On South Campus, there's a story like if you stand at the top of the steps and you say you're for the British Army or whatever, then you'll get a push in the back and you'll like fall down the steps.
Yeah.
That was something that was told
No
to
one
me when I
pushed
was
me.
there.
I have this.
Well,
story.
you said because you said too. Like it's interesting because you're very interested in the ghosts and stuff, but you haven't ever experienced one that you want to.
Well, I've gotten voices on tape in haunted places, but I have not been pushed down the steps
Right.
as I've requested or pinched or hit or any of those things that other people get to have.
Tyler, have you ever
Yeah,
met a ghost?
lucky them, right? No, I don't think I've had a ghost.
Where is this? Like, why are you so scared of ghosts?
I don't know. I think because they're dead, maybe. George.
Like they're
And I-
slurping up the
yeah,
death
yeah, yeah.
water?
Oh, wow. I don't know why I would be scared of the person that's slurping up death water. That's
Well,
crazy to me.
That guy is like on a whole other level.
I just think
Yes.
what I've I figured it out. It's the unknown maybe, and I don't know how I would handle.
Well, it's not just the unknown; they might suck you into it.
Right.
Oh, and you could bring them home.
I was at this doing this show with this weekend with this. The headliner was she was a ghost hunter, and she was telling me these stories and stories and stories, and they just kept making me more scared and how likely things would be. And so I was living by my roommate had moved back home.
Yeah.
But we were living in the apartment, and I used to hear noises in his bedroom, and I would always think we were either being robbed or haunted, and I could never figure out which one I wanted it to be.
I'd probably go with the haunting.
You'd rather be haunted?
I don't want to deal with a human being.
I know.
Like
I know.
those people, they're
I know how to handle that fear.
Unpredictable.
You can run. You can hide. You can play dead.
That's a good point. A ghost knows like when you're
Yeah,
sleeping.
you can't play dead with a ghost.
Man.
But who's going to drink your death water?
I didn't even know we had death water.
I'm telling that story. Is that in one of your books?
Yeah, in fact, the cover shot is him.
Is it?
Yeah.
I'm gonna go read that.
And he's just like wiping death water off his shit.
He's like, guys, I'm good. I'm not even thirsty
because
anymore. I had my fill of death water today. It's too many. I'm done.
Put yourself in my shoes,
Glasses
George.
of death water.
I didn't know that there was death water before today, and now I find
like
out that
3
there's death
miles
water,
from here.
and that there's people drinking it. You gotta put yourself. I'm having a
That's
rough.
officially
this is
my
a
new
rough
favorite
episode
ghost
for me.
story of all time.
I don't know that he qualifies as a person,
Yeah, well,
particularly. I did write a book called Haunted Crime Scenes, as well as a book called Paranormal Forensics, because we put the forensic stuff that I do together with paranormal investigations, and those two books together take the subject seriously, but also do, with skepticism, and show, you have to not have wish fulfillment, for example. You have to check things, you have to question things, you have to be very careful in how you set things up so that you're not just,
Right.
doing like what they do in TV shows. So I think those two books would be fun for someone who likes both true crime and ghosts, because that puts both of them together. And I'm actually writing a novel series based on that idea.
All right. And people can also kind of see you when you pop up on TV, whether it's in Forensic Files or whatever. Well, it's always funny because we'll be watching, or this show.
Or this show.
Because we'll be watching a show, and I'll turn to my wife. I'm like, I know her.
Yeah.
I've met her. She's like, oh, why are you watching these crazy murder shows?
what would you do if the worlds collided, where you found a ghost that was killed by a serial killer that you wrote about?
I found if a ghost would stick around near me, I would
She'd be happy.
very happy about that. I'm told I actually have the ghosts of murder victims around me because they believe I can hear them and they're trying to tell me their story.
So they follow you?
Right here, right
They're in
now.
here.
This is a small room.
Right. Yeah. They can fit.
Who told you this?
Several people
Oh no.
who didn't know each other.
Anyway,
All right.
on that note, I have to go drink some death water. Thank you so much,
this was
Dr.
fun.
Catherine
This is- I'm
Ramsland,
sweating,
for
but
coming
it was-
on. That was a ton of fun. And I'm slightly terrified.
Yeah,
now.
I'm not going to sleep, but
So,
I'll there'll be more time for me to read your books because I won't sleep again
Oh,
for
that's
the
a
rest of my
good
life.
time to read.
all right.
Mouth is a little dry, George. Some
Have
death.
some
Need some death water. Thank you for watching the Lehigh Valley with Love podcast, filmed at the PPL Public Media Center at PBS 39.